So if I ask a financial advisor, how many clients do you have? And let's just say, for argument's sake, they say 100 clients. Okay, great. So out of those 100 clients, is it possible for you to have created a program with a bunch of videos and maybe some checklists or blah, 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 and just hand over whatever that material is, that content, to all 100 of your clients, and they would all see it equally valuable and actually use it? And the answer is always no, of course not. That would be completely silly. So then what do? Well, each one of my clients is different. Some have different concerns, or the different parts, they're at different stages of their life. I said, well, that's exactly how we do it at CAA.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Pedro, and today's guest is Ermos, a coach and financial services leader who helps advisors scale revenue, improve close rates, and build client acquisition systems that reduce stress and increase performance. Through his Client Acquisition Academy and the Flex Method, he focuses on helping advisors develop clear positioning, stronger LinkedIn and outreach systems, and respectful closing frameworks that turn first meetings into real client relationships, while helping professionals reclaim their time and design practices that fund their lives rather than dominate them. Welcome to the show, Ermos.
Thank you so much, Pedro. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I always like to backtrack a little, back to the origin story. And because every coach has that moment, when they look at their life and say, yeah, I guess this is what I'm doing now. Right. So when was that for you?
Okay, so that will be back in 2000 when I started in the financial services industry. So for those who may not have been around as long as me, 2000 was when the tech bubble burst. And unlike 2008, where the markets tanked 40-50%, in 2008, everything happened fairly quickly. So it's almost like a shock. And then the markets tanked, but then they just went up just as fast as they went down. What makes 2000 different was it was just a slow, painful decline over 2+ years. And that's when I started, June of 2000, of trying to acquire clients. And you can only imagine, Pedro, talking to clients that have been with you for 2.5 years, and they still have not seen a positive statement. Every single time we meet, it's like going down and down and down. But I would honestly say that in the end, it was probably the greatest thing that happened for me in my career, because going through that, it's almost like baptism by fire. You could not have had a more stressful time to build a practice. But on the flip side, it was actually good because there were a lot of disturbed people out there that were willing to say yes to meetings because they needed answers. From there, I became what they call division director. And in addition to managing my clients, I was also starting to train and coach new advisors that were coming on board. So I had a dual role for about 6 years. And that's when I truly realized that my true love is to help other advisors. I get just as much enjoyment when a advisor that I help lands a client than they did, maybe even more sometimes. And then 10 years into my career, they gave me an entire office to manage. They were managing about $2.1 billion of assets under management, about 100 advisors. And from there, those next 10 years was just only advising and coaching, mentorship, other financial advisors. And then about 21 years into my career, I decided to go out on my own and do my own coaching. And then from that part, I thought what I really wanted to do was the personal coaching, one-on-one, which I still do. But I realized that was a heck of a lot of work, and they're paying me a lot of money. So it's hard for me to go away, because I like to travel as well and go away and kind of like decompress and have some of my own time. And that was very difficult for me to step away because I felt they're paying me the money. I owe it to them. So it didn't matter where I was in the world on vacation. I had to log on and do that coaching session, which again, I love, but it's inconvenient. But then about 2 years ago, I teamed up with another coach, and we created the Client Acquisition Academy, which is probably 10 times better than personal coaching, because within that academy, you do get personal coaching, but you also get group coaching, which adds another element. So now you're not just learning from the coaches, you're learning from the other advisors who are making things happen. And they still have some structure. So it's everything you would expect inside a coaching program, the videos, the scripts, and the support. And all our advisors feel comfortable reaching out to us if they have a question or a problem they're working on. And we're very responsive that way.
Very interesting. We're talking about some major changes in the market, right? Especially with the financial side of it. Like you're talking about the tech bubble burst, and then now we have like crypto and all of that. Now, I'm curious about the shift that happened when you're like, okay, I'm managing 100+ advisors. When did it happen? Like you're like, okay, I'm helping these guys, but now I'm going to turn this into a coaching business. You know, that moment you realized, you know what, I could be doing this by myself, you know, and running my own practice. So when did that happen?
Well, it happened because the company that I was working with made some changes, and it took away a lot of my ability to be creative. They kind of clamped things down, and it was their way or the highway type of thing. So I'm like, okay, then I'm taking the highway then, because, and this is not a knock against my previous company, but it's more of an observation in the industry itself. And Pedro, you may be aware of this. When I sit down with advisors for the first time and we start our coaching program, the stuff that they're being taught, it's like from the 80s and 90s, like stuff that maybe it worked back then, but it does not work in 2026. And they're kind of stuck in this situation where they think they're getting sales training, and then they go and they try to use it in the real world and realize this stuff's not working, or it works at such a low capacity that they're getting burnt out, when there are so many other ways to be a lot more effective and have a better balance in life, where you're actually making money, getting new clients, but at the same time, you're not stressed or working so many hours you can't even afford to enjoy the money that you're earning.
Can you share like an example of an old tactic that you see people like referencing to that you see it like that's outdated or it's not actually landing these days?
Yeah. A lot of them are taught to be salesy, right? I mean, I can give you lots of examples. They're taught to lead with the company. So I work with XYZ company, and we manage, a gazillion dollars, and we've been around for 10,000 years, and we do this and we do that. And so all they're doing is they're talking about themselves. Then they go into I'm a CFP and all this kind of stuff. And at this point, like, there's no real connection between the advisor and the prospect. The prospect is not like, they don't listen. At some point they will care that you're a CFP, but at this point in time, they could not care less. The only thing they care about right now is, can you help me? I have this problem. I have no idea if you can help me. And you just spent the last 10 minutes talking about how wonderful you are and your company. So it's very salesy even up front. So instead of getting the prospect to open up by asking them questions and being curious about how you can help them, they go straight into pitch mode. And literally sometimes they have a pitch deck. And from there, it's just way too salesy. I mean, I got one of my newest advisors that came on board send me the DM links, the messages that he was using. So we kind of teach a lot of people how to use LinkedIn. And, so we have a script that goes out. It's very effective. They get engagement. And then he didn't know what to say because there's a question about inflation. And then he responded with this really long, very salesy, this is what my company does, this is it, and all this jargon. And then he sends the conversation into the school where we can all kind of take a look at it. And I'm cringing. I'm like, of course he didn't respond. Like, who would respond to that? You went straight into like sales mode instead of asking the next logical question. Well, what are you currently doing to fight inflation? Like, you need to find out like where the real problem is. inflation could be anything, right? But these are just some of the things that I see, Pedro, where a lot of advisors are using outdated sales techniques, and it's not entirely their fault because that's what they're being taught from their companies.
Mm.
And also at the same time, if they want to get really good stuff, like you have to spend a lot of time on the internet, on YouTube, and learning the proper way to communicate.
Yeah, that is so true. It's like I always, my brain goes back to weird analogies. It's like going to a restaurant and you sit down and the waiter comes and you're like, "Hey, is the fish fresh? What's the chef's special for today?" And he just hands over you a menu, right? It's like it's not connecting, it's not talking with you. And I gotta say, at least my experience with financial advisors, I think the main thing that always pops in my head, my worry is like, is he trying to push me on an agenda? Does he have like something that will benefit him instead of me? So I think the idea that you mentioned is like creating the connection is so important. I'm not sure if that is something that you see happening, but at least this is in my perspective, right? Like I do have a financial advisor, so I'm always worried about, and not just the financial. It's like any broker, right? Is he trying to push me into something that benefits him, or is he trying to create a connection and actually help me? Is that something you see more often than not?
Yes, I do believe the industry is changing. So in a good way, there's a lot of work to be done, but I hesitate to say that certain advisors are better than other advisors. But typically, if you're dealing with a large company, they're pressured to push their own products. So maybe the one piece of advice I would give clients out there is, if you have your statement in front of you and you work for ABC, or your advisor works for ABC firm, if all your investments have ABC US equity, ABC, European small cap, ABC whatever, I would probably get a second opinion on your investment portfolio, because chances are your advisor is pretty much beholden to sell only products that their company will approve of.
Mm, interesting.
Uh-oh, I
Okay.
think I got Pedro looking through his statements right now.
Yeah, no, that's wild. Yeah, you gotta be careful. But thanks for that. I'll look into mine. No,
Now,
that's the
having
coach.
said that, that doesn't mean that your advisor is not doing a good job. I'm just saying,
Right.
if you want truly unbiased advice, there should be other products within your portfolio that are not just from the company they work for.
Okay. Interesting. Now, from the get go, it sounds like you already have your ICP, right? Your ideal client profile, the financial advisor. So that's the coaching side. I want to talk about the part that nobody escapes, which is marketing, right? So, how do people usually find you? Those advisors.
Yeah, so my biggest thing is LinkedIn. I try to post I do post every single day. There are a few exceptions, and I'll be honest. I mean, I struggled with it. I really only started using LinkedIn about 4 years ago. I had like a couple hundred connections, and now there's over 14,000, maybe even 15,000. I'm not sure, but it's around there, and almost exclusively financial advisors. So I don't approve connection requests from just anybody. So I could probably have 25, 30,000 connections if I said yes to everybody, but I will only approve or connect with financial advisors or someone who helps financial advisors. So that's something that I can learn from. But LinkedIn's my big thing, or my major thing, and a lot of the advisors that reach out to me is very organic. They mention, "Hey, I've read this post. I found this interesting. I offer free assets, like free resources, Pedro, which people really like. Kind of gives them a little bit of taste of how I'm different from other coaches. And we occasionally do webinars as well. But other than that, we do other things as well. But LinkedIn is the major thrust.
Mm. And what did you end up trying, as you figured out how to reach people, the financial advisors? I'm just wondering, where do they hang out?
Actually, there are a lot of financial advisors on LinkedIn, and I guess you can. Well, I'll give you a couple of things that I do. Right. So
Mhm.
your banner is your billboard. Think of it as you have a billboard on the highway, right? You paid good money for it, and the problem is you have 3 seconds to make an impression because someone's going to drive right by.
Mhm.
So you got to make sure that as soon as they click on your profile, they know immediately who you help. So my content is meant to draw in financial advisors in the hopes that they click on my profile. When they click on my profile, boom, oh, this guy helps financial advisors. What's he all about, right? So maybe they dig a little bit deeper, they look into my about section and that kind of thing. And that's effectively what I do. Now, on top of that, there are other tricks. I mean, there's too many to mention, but some of the obvious ones are I try to do 20 connections per day, only to financial advisors, but not random, because most people just hit random, right? Or they'll filter on LinkedIn. If I'm an advisor looking for business owners, they'll filter business owners in Nashville. Okay, great. That's your niche. But if you send out 20 connection requests, you'll probably get one or two people to accept. However, what I do is I go to places where other financial advisors are hanging out, meaning they're already commenting somewhere else. So if I click on a connection request on somebody who's posting a comment on LinkedIn, all of a sudden when I send out 20 connection requests, I'm getting back 12, 15 acceptance ratio. So you can like 3x, 4x, even 5x the amount of connections you get by just targeting the right people, but also targeting the ones that are already active on LinkedIn. Because if you're just randomly clicking on people, they may have not been on LinkedIn for 6 months. They're never even going to see your message. So you just kind of wasted a connection request.
Interesting. Okay. Now, let's talk about business for a second, right? So people find you or you find them, right, through LinkedIn or any social media or events that you mentioned, and they resonate with your work. And eventually they want to know what working with Ermos actually looks like, right? And everyone builds their coaching business a bit differently. You started as a one-on-one, and now you're moving toward more of a group coaching with one-on-one component, which is the academy you mentioned. So when someone actually becomes a client, right? What does that experience looks like right now?
Okay. So I will speak to it as an advisor first, so it'll make sense about what I do.
Mm.
So if I ask a financial advisor, how many clients do you have? And let's just say, for argument's sake, they say 100 clients. Okay, great. So out of those 100 clients, is it possible for you to have created a program with a bunch of videos and maybe some checklists or blah, 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 and just hand over whatever that material is, that content, to all 100 of your clients, and they would all see it equally valuable and actually use it? And the answer is always no, of course not. That would be completely silly. So then what do? Well, each one of my clients is different. Some have different concerns or the different parts, they're at different stages of their life. I said, well, that's exactly how we do it at CAA. Every financial advisor is different. Some want help with lead generation. Some want help with, closing more business. Believe it or not, Pedro, some people come to us because they want more accountability. So like, all that stuff is great. I just need someone to kind of keep track of what I'm doing. And like when I say accountability, I don't want people to think that we're browbeating our advisors. There's many ways to provide accountability without really being on top of people. And some of it, the accountability comes from other advisors, because they'll say, hey, I'm going to make this many calls this week, or I'm going to do this, that, the other. And they'll say it in the group chat. So you're kind of committed now, because the next time we meet, someone's going to ask, hey, Pedro, like you said, you're making 50 calls the other day. How many of those did you make? So it's kind of like, it's fun. And one other thing, which I find interesting, a couple of our advisors have come to us because they actually want less clients. Now, why would somebody want less clients? Because they're at a stage in their career where they've made lots of money. They still are. The 80-20 rule is in effect. So they can probably get rid of 80% of their clients. They can probably get rid of 80% of their clients and still retain 80% of their revenue. And there's many different ways to make that happen. Either they sell it off, or they bring in a junior, or whatever it is. But long story short, Pedro, the reality is every advisor is a little bit different. So our coaching program is bespoke. So there's a lot of heavy lifting in the beginning, because both coaches, myself and Andy, we will do personal coaching with them in the first 90 days. They will get more personal coaching from us in the first 90 days than most personal coaches will give over the entire year, because our goal is for them to get a positive ROI in those first 90 days without exception. Well, up to this point, there hasn't been an exception. Every single one of our advisors that we bring on board have that positive ROI within 90 days.
I like the fact that you kind of peeled it off the real intention, right? And sometimes we see that a lot, especially like when I'm talking with another coaches and they're like, oh, I need more clients, right? Needing more clients is just a surface level answer, because there's like lead gen, there's like conversion rates, there's like no show, the entire positioning. So it's not that simple. And also the fact that you brought up is like, what's the real goal behind the client, right? What does he really want? And sometimes, more often than not, we see people that have surface level goals. They don't even think about that, right? It's like, okay, but what's happening behind curtains, right? And that's the part of the coaching piece that I can sense you do, right? Now, your work seems pretty hands-on, Ermos, right? So how do you think about capacity? So don't stretch yourself too thin, you know?
So on a personal level, you mean the academy?
Yeah, I mean the business itself, right? We're talking about outreach. We're talking about the coaching part. So just trying to balance everything. How do you do that? You know, because in this space, the coaching space, we see a lot of coaches wearing so many hats, right? So just trying to understand your point of view on it.
Yeah. So we max out at 5 new members per month. So regardless of how many people reach out to us and want to work with us, we cap it at 5 per month, because it's so labor intensive in the first 90 days. So we want to make sure that when an advisor comes on board, they have easy and a lot of access to us. Because think about it. I don't know if you know this stat, Pedro, but when I did some research, I found out that 6% of people who buy, by the way, that's 6, not 60, 6% of people who buy a high ticket coaching program actually complete the program. So there are people out there spending thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars on a coaching program, and they're not completing it because a lot of times it doesn't come with that personal touch, that personal coaching. They just get handed a bunch of videos and scripts and whatever, and it's good luck. So for us, we ensure that they have access to us on a regular basis to make sure they're getting all their questions answered. They're feeling motivated. They're feeling excited, because when you put all that together, they're far more likely to go out there, make the calls, learn more, get better at their craft, and learn how to convert a lead into an actual paying client.
Interesting. And I gotta ask you, do you think that's part of your background with financial advisors? Because, well, you were a financial advisor, right? So the thing is, the ROI is so raw, right? When you're talking with a client at the early stages, but while you're advising him, it's like, here's the number. We want to reach that number, right? So when you're moving that to coaching practice, you're like super intentional about the outcome. Do you think those two are tied? Because I don't see, more often than not, people like doing that in the coaching space, having that clarity, with the outcome. Do you see that happening on your side?
Absolutely. Great question too, Pedro. So the reality is, every advisor is a little bit different depending on if they're an independent or whether they're a captive advisor. Every company pays a little bit different, but typically the average advisor that we work with, they only need one average client. So it's not multi-million-dollar clients. It's not their best client ever. Typically, the clients that we work with, the advisors that we work with, need one new client to effectively pay for our entire program. So when I say we're batting 100 or we're batting 1,000 of getting people positive ROI after 90 days, it's such a low bar, because one client pretty much pays for our entire program, and then everything after that is just positive ROI. And we explain it to them that way, and then they realize, well, this is kind of like a no-brainer, right? So we probably convert 2/3 of all the advisors that we work with. And having said that, there are situations where we actually turn advisors away, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we're very protective of the advisors that we have in here now. So we're very proud of them. There's a lot of collaboration. Our advisors will talk offline. Sometimes, depending on their geography, they'll even start doing some marketing things together. So it's almost like a really tight-knit group. There's no negativity in there. Everyone's positive. Everyone's ambitious. Everyone's looking to grow. Everyone's looking to meet their goals. And you can see the conversations going back and forth that, despite myself and Andy, they're motivating themselves. So we're very protective. We don't just bring in any advisor because they're willing to pay for our course, our program.
Okay. Now, I'm curious where you're taking all this, right? Looking ahead, where do you see the business going, Ermos? Are you thinking about scaling, hiring? Is there a next step you're excited about?
Yeah, I'm always excited. We're always learning. So right now we are. So it took us about a year to ramp up in the sense that we wanted to make sure that when someone came on board, like everything was there. Like they couldn't possibly look at what they have at their disposal and say, well, I think you're missing this, or I think you're missing that. And a lot of that feedback came from our advisors, stuff we never would have thought of. We ended up putting together because of the feedback we got from the other advisors. So for the first year or so, it was 100% organic, Pedro. So the advisor that are in there right now is basically LinkedIn or personal connections. But yes, we do plan to scale in 2026, possibly hire additional coaches. A lot of stuff that we have now is automated. There's some exciting things that we're working on as well that will help advisors generate more leads and more clients, and obviously more revenue. So I can't give you an actual number, but we would like to get to 200 advisors before the end of next year.
Nice. Okay. And whenever we're aiming towards the next chapter, there's always something under the hood that we're working on, right? So what are you currently trying to improve or tighten up in your business right now?
So it really is automation. So we hired 2 people. One person is a tech person. So that person helped us eliminate a lot of the admin stuff. So when somebody signs up now, like they just get automated emails saying this is your next step, right? And then they click on that, and then this is your next step. So it's good for us, but it's also good for the advisor, because at no point in time are they ever wondering, well, what should I do next? They always have the next step, right? And we're also looking at creating sub accounts within. We use Go High Level, and how that will work is because a lot of them are interested in marketing. We have everything available. Like if you want to create an email campaign, we have it. You want to create it for a certain niche, I mean, we have it, or we can do it for you. So we want to create a sub account for each one of our advisors where they can actually use the scripts that are available to them, either cut and paste or get us to give them some additional tweaks. And then that just creates a never-ending marketing drip campaign that they can send out to all their prospects. So 1, that gets them in front of more people, but 2, inevitably they're going to get back a question from a prospect. Oh, what are your fees, or whatever it is. And now they come back to us and say, oh, geez, I got this question. I'm not sure how to answer it. Like, what do you think? So of course we're going to be there to coach them through what to say next and that kind of stuff. Because that is one thing, Pedro, where it's like there's people and companies that create a script, right? And they say, well, you say this and they'll say that. And then you say this and they'll say that. But that doesn't work. That's not real life. Like they're going to come up with a completely different response, and they're going to be like,
what do I say now?
Yeah, exactly. So that's one thing that you can't completely automate with just scripts, but we're available for them. So when they get a question that they can't answer, then we jump in and we give them the help, and then they respond, and then they get clients out of it.
Interesting. It's like a nurturing campaign that they just can plug and play using a sub account and Go High Level, so they can keep nurturing those leads. And you kind of have a framework that's already set up. So, I mean, of course, there are going to be some changes, but you have that like 95% that will potentially work for most of the financial advisors, right? I got that right?
You got that right.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I think about the DM part that you mentioned. The back and forth with because I did that back in the day also. It is really, I'm not sure if you agree with this, but it is really about understanding the intention behind it and the next step. So, and not trying to preach out or giving the client a menu, right? I'm not sure like, hey, I'm going to hide behind this 400 block of text and saying I do X, Y, and Z and hope this sticks in the wall, right? It's not like that. Like try to connect with in a human level with the other person. Do you see like that? Something like that?
I see that a lot, Pedro. Even in my own inboxes, so-called professional salespeople. The funny thing is, I get salespeople reaching out to me to teach me about sales, and they'll
That's
send me
terrible.
like a 200-word LinkedIn message, and I'm like, no one's reading this. Like I should be teaching you. This doesn't make any sense. Yeah, we do have a strategy that works, and I just a couple of pointers without getting into too much detail. The shorter, the better, right?
Mhm.
I make it personalized. So you mentioned their name in the DM. You also identify if you can't identify a problem because it's too early in the scenario. What we do is we either give them a two-part question or multiple choice, right?
Mhm.
So if somebody is a tech professional, chances are RSUs is on their mind. So, typical, I work with tech professionals just like you. And when I speak to them, they typically have issue with A or B, which one is it for you, or A, B, C, or D, right? And
Mhm.
then you're basically creating less friction for them to respond because that's all you want to do. One of the biggest issues I see with advisors or salespeople in general, they feel like they have to go for the kill. Like, I want to book a meeting. Hey, I'm
Mhm.
awesome. What's your calendar like next week? And I see that all the time. And that's like, no, you're not going to get anything out of that. But if you
Mhm.
come across as being non-salesy and helpful and offer them something for free, because that's what we do with our advisors, we teach them, hey, you know what? I have this RSU calculator that you might be interested in. Happy to send it over. So now think
Mhm.
about it. We've identified the right niche, tech professional. They've told us that they have concerns about their RSU option plans or whatever it is. And we've just offered them a free resource that will actually help them. You're far more likely for them to say, sure, send that over. So now you're starting the engagement. Now you're starting a conversation. And that's the goal. The goal is not to book a meeting. The goal is just to start a conversation because that conversation will lead to more questions and that will lead to building more rapport. And then the natural evolution would be hopping on a 15-minute chat. Never a
Mhm.
meeting because no one likes meetings, but people are happy to jump on a 15-minute chat. And sorry, I'm going to step back a second. That's another mistake I see a lot of advisors make. When they finally actually get somebody that's somewhat interested, they try to book a 1 hour meeting and then they wonder why they get ghosted because no one likes meetings and no one wants to commit to 1 hours. But lots of people are willing to hear you out on a 15-minute chat because it doesn't feel like a sales call.
Mm, yeah. I would frame it as an introduction also. This is the way, at least when I was reading this book, Super Connector. I'm not sure if you ever read that book, but the framing is different. And also, um, I feel like, I'm not sure if you agree with this, but I feel like LinkedIn, well, usually LinkedIn is more formal, right? But the AI advancement in text has the LinkedIn DMs like reek as AI, and sometimes I need to be a little less formal so people don't think the DM is like, oh, this is another bot. Do you feel like that you have to be a little bit more human on the DM instead of just trying, hey, this is Pedro and I do X, Y, and Z,
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. AI is both good and bad. AI is basically a tool. It's not meant to replace you as a person. Use it to get ideas. Use it to make something that you've created a little bit better. Give me 3 versions of this DM, and you may have to like pick and choose, a few words here or a sentence there, and it makes it more closer to your personality because authenticity matters at the end of the day. So far beyond even just sounding robotic, if it's not really your personality, then it's difficult for people to kind of relate to you when they finally actually get a hold of you, right? Or get in front of you. So it's important to be authentic, use AI as a tool to make what you've already created a little bit better. And you should always never ask AI to do a task and then copy and paste and send. That's like the worst thing you can do. Because there's tells, right? I mean, I can pretty much tell if somebody posted was AI or not.
It's not just X. It's not Z. It's just Y. And the the hard truth. There's always those tells and the AI tags. Yeah, I can say it all over too. Now, Ermos, I want to tap into your experience. So we can benefit the audience a little bit here, because you've been 20 years plus in the game. So you've seen all types of advice, business advice. Some are good, some are bad. Okay, so what's one piece of business advice you hear all the time that you think, that's overrated or misunderstood?
I guess I can tie it into a story. I might have mentioned it before, the one about the emotions will beat facts and logic every time. So our jobs as financial advisors, it's a bunch of numbers. It's financial planning. This percentage, this ROI, this tax bracket, all that kind of stuff. So it seems kind of natural that advisors would lean into the whole logic and facts thing. But at the same time, we also know that psychologically people will run away from pain 3 times faster than they will run towards pleasure. So this is not me being brilliant. This is just human psychology, right? So a couple of things that I'll point out. I'll give you an example of how we helped one of our advisors basically make $100,000 commission, and it'll make sense in a second. But he was in one of our group coaching calls, and he was talking about this prospect, and he says, "Yeah, we're meeting up for I think it was the 6th meeting. We're meeting up for the 6th meeting." And he started talking. I said, whoa, hey, wait a minute. 6th meeting? Like, what the heck did you talk about in the first 5 meetings that needs to be said now? And it's like, what was missed? In my mind, I'm thinking, what can you possibly be talking about in meeting number 6 that you didn't talk about in the first 5 meetings? And he said, well, you know what? It's a good client. He's on the fence. We got good rapport, but he just won't pull the trigger. He just won't make the move. So I asked him, okay, great. So, what benefits? So I called him out. I said, why should he work with you? Tell me why he should work with you. And he said, well, if he works with me, I'm going to do this, that, and the other, and that's going to save him $70,000 a year. This is a high net worth client. I said, okay. So then how are you explaining it to him, or how are you ending the meeting? And he said, well, and I'm paraphrasing here. So if you work with me and do X, Y, Z, you'll save $70,000 a year. I said, okay, that's not bad. And that's pretty much what every financial advisor does. But let's think now psychologically, right? Pain is 3 times stronger than pleasure. You're hitting him on the pleasure side. I get to save $70,000, right? Mm-hmm. I said, the only difference you just go in there and do your thing like you did in the first 5 meetings, but I want you to change one thing. I want you to change the ROI into COI, and COI is effectively cost of inaction. So he went in there, did the exact same thing, but now at the end of the meeting, instead of saying, I'm going to save you $70,000, he said, if we don't do X, Y, and Z, you will lose $70,000 in taxes. Mm-hmm. And you will continue to lose $70,000 in taxes every single year until you actually fix this. So how excited are you to be donating or losing $70,000 to the IRS every year? And there was this you can see, like, it was just like that aha moment, right? Okay. And he's like, I've never even thought of it that way. Signed the paperwork right there. So moved over assets, bought an annuity. It ended up being $100,000 in commission for this particular advisor. But those are some of the things that we teach our advisors. I don't want advisors to think that I need this coaching program because I need this massive overhaul of everything I'm doing. Most advisors, they just need some tweaks, right? A little bit of the right sentence, the right tact, the right question at the right time makes such a huge difference. Such a huge difference. I mean, if you have time for a story, I can give you one more.
Sure.
So there was one advisor that I've been working with for 5 years now. He was one of my very first clients, and he still works with me. Great guy. We become friends. I go to his house now. He comes to mine. But when we first started working together, he used to joke and say, Ermos, I can't even close a door, much less close a client. He's one of those guys that jokes around a lot, but he's quite smart. And maybe to his detriment, he's that smart. But he told me this story about this prospect at the time, and that prospect was also meeting with like 2 or 3 other advisors. So we kind of went through a few things, and during the meeting, the question that was asked was, when would you like to retire? And the answer he got back was 62. Now, what would the average advisor do with this now? Oh, so the problem is you want to retire at age 62. So let me get all your information. So now they're coming across as an interrogator. How much money do you make? How much money are you going to spend? Let's talk about your assets, your 401k, your RSP, boom, 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 boom. And it's just all facts, all numbers, just boom, 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 boom. Oh, fantastic, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect. Now I'm going to take all this information back with me, and I'm going to come back with a financial plan that's going to help you, right? Mm-hmm. And then they come back and deliver 50 pages of a bunch of graphs and numbers. And then they wonder why they don't get the client, because now they're confused, right? And I always say, if you're confusing, you're losing. So you're not, and that's probably the reason why most advisors have like a 10% success rate when it comes to converting prospects into clients. But anyway, this gentleman kind of explained how his process went, which he got from us, by the way. But I'm giving him full credit because he actually did it. But when the prospect said age 62, he asked a question. Interesting. So Pedro, why 62?
Exactly.
Why not 60? Why not 64? Oh, yeah, well, I'm 60 years old right now. I'm selling my business, and it's going to take 2 years to kind of go through the process with my accountant and my lawyer. So it's going to take about 2 years for the sale of my business to hit my bank account. And that's the reason age 62. Fantastic. That's a really good answer, Pedro, and congratulations on your business. Then what? Well, I'm going to be retired. Okay, but what are you going to do in retirement? Oh, I plan to move out east for my retirement. That's interesting, Pedro. Is there something of significance out east? Yes, my son and his wife live out there with my two grandkids. Oh, that's fascinating. So, Pedro, why would that be so important? Like, you're picking up everything from Toronto and you're moving out east. That seems like a big deal, which is great, by the way. He goes, well, here's the thing. I spent my entire life working in my business. And over the years, I felt like I was an absentee father. And at this point, the advisor was telling me he was starting to get emotional. I'm not going to bore you with the rest of the details, Pedro, but the reality is he spent so much time in his business that he had very little time to spend with his son. And that created an enormous amount of guilt inside of him, thinking that he was an absentee father. So the reason why he wanted to retire and move out east was because he wanted to go out there, spend more time with his son and his grandkids to remove that pain, to remove that guilt of not being there for his son. So imagine the scenario now. The 2 other advisors come in and provide that prospect with a bunch of charts about how he's going to retire at age 62, and it's all about the numbers, right? If you do X, Y, and Z, you'll never run out of money, blah, 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 blah. My advisor comes in and says, if you do X, Y, and Z, not only will you be able to retire, you'll be able to move out east, spend as much time as you want with your son, connect with your grandkids, and most importantly, remove all that guilt that you're currently feeling. You can erase that guilt and make up for lost time. And my advisor said that he basically broke down and started crying. He was so happy, like the relief that he experienced knowing that he was able to help his son and his grandkids. Now, you tell me, Pedro, which advisor is going to get the business? The one that talks about the facts and logic and ROI and rates of return, or the one that actually identified the true pain and solved that problem for that client?
Yeah. It's like thinking money is the final outcome when more often than not it's means to an end. right? He's just trying to organize his entire system so he can actually get that outcome, which is, you mentioned the true pain. And that's what actually drives sales, right? It's understanding and creating that connection. So definitely. I love that story. I
We
love
solve
that.
problems. That's our job. Our job is
Yeah,
not to get returns. Our job is to solve problems. But the
exactly.
problem for the advisor is they don't know how to find what that true problem is.
Mm. Yeah, and sometimes I think they see from their perspective, right? It's so obvious for them. It's just a mathematical problem, and they're not trying to understand what's going inside here. So yeah, for sure. Now, Ermos, if someone listening wants to connect with you or follow your work, where can people find you and connect with you?
So two ways. One is through LinkedIn. Easily findable. I believe I'm the only Ermos on LinkedIn. So ERMOS. And through there, you can also reach our CAA, Client Acquisition Academy. We actually set up two different versions. So we actually have a free version. And I often joke because I've paid for coaching, by the way, Pedro. So I'm not a hypocrite. I truly believe in coaching in general, because if something's going to take me, I mean, I can learn something. If I want to learn something, but it's going to take me 5 years to learn it and be good at it, doesn't it just make sense to just pay somebody and do it like in 5 weeks and start making money? So I also invest in a lot of coaching. But our free platform, which is available to everyone, I would argue has more value than the coaching program that they probably paid 10 grand for. I can say that with conviction because I've paid for those courses and I know what's in our course. So if they just want a taste of what we do, there is a ton of resources in the CA free version. And really the biggest difference between the paid version and the free version is the paid version comes with the support. It comes with the coaching, and it comes with a smaller group of more ambitious advisors. So, on the surface, it looks like it's the same because there's a lot of the same content, but in the reality, there's a lot more value on the paid side, and the people that are in there are taking obviously their careers a lot more seriously. So it's a completely different vibe.
Got it. Okay. There were a few things you shared today that really stay with me. I'll tell you right off the bat. I think the baptism by fire that you mentioned, the tech bubble, and then you're going to that company, and it's the highway, or they're I wouldn't say they laid you off, but it was like you felt you had skin in the game, and you went through a hardship, and you thought, hey, this may be a great opportunity. I think that's a key component for be a great coach, being there, done that. So I think that's very important. And I would say also don't when you told me you don't accept people on your LinkedIn that are not financial advisors, that makes a lot of sense. I would love for people to hear that with more often, because it tells me you have intention. And I see a lot of coaches that they brag about a number of followers, but are your followers really your ICP out there? Because that's just raw data, right? And how can you convert? How can you reach out to those people? Are they actually engaging with your content? And also sometimes it's not just about engagement. It's about, are they reading it? Because sometimes they're not going to raise their hand. Hey, I need help here. I'm doing terrible. He's just reading it. And sometimes they click on a link. So having that intention behind the number, I think that's crucial. Okay. Also, I love the fact you mentioned that 6% who buys high ticket programs don't complete it. Oh, that's a fun fact. I need to take a look at that. And last but not least, I think the integrity. When you mention, I'm turning advisors away sometimes. I think that's a good thing. I'm unsure if that's a good or bad thing. But if I can give my honest opinion, I think that's a good thing, because that protects community and that protects alignment, who you want people to hang out with your community. So I know sometimes, I'm not saying you do that, but I feel like I had done that in the past to my own business, which is like that scarcity mindset. They were like, should I send those guys away? Should I need clients? That constant fight we have between our minds. And more often than not, I think you're dead on right on like not accepting people that shouldn't be hanging out with you at the end of the day. Now, Ermos, I appreciate what you do. I appreciate you being here and sharing so openly today. It was great having you on.
It was my pleasure, Pedro. Thank you so much.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.